Hi everyone, my name is Ivy Najihah binti Jamaluddin. My matrix number is 24002876. So we are from tutorial for group 3 and today we will be presenting chapter 3 which is important managerial issues. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our group members. Here is the first 5 members. And here are the remaining 5 members of our group.
So, this is what we are going to present today. Our presentation consists of a discussion question and 2 study case. Okay, so firstly, let's take a look at the discussion questions.
Assalamualaikum and good days to everyone. My name is Azalia Nabila binti Abadi. My matric number is 24002903 and today I'll be presenting about how does the concept of global village affect organizations and managers. First and foremost, for the organization can acquire their resources from around the world. This means that organization can have any materials or human resources easily with minimum obstacle for the operation of the organization. These allow competitive advantage as they can obtain the resource at lower price provided by other countries like Indonesia and Vietnam. Hence, this helps the company reduce costs and increase operational efficiency. Next, organizations can increase its productivity by having new technology innovation which are crucial for global village organization to stay competitive. For example, an organization invests in new automated equipment like packaging machine to increase production to cater for world demand. Hence, this effect of the global village can increase company productivity. Last but not least, organizations can expand their business beyond their home country, giving them 1,000 opportunities to explore. This means that company can increase their chance to gain knowledge and resources to develop a strong and stable organization by entering a new market without geographical border. Hence, organizations can enjoy a large customer base while attaining the strategy to stay sustainable in global village. Let's move our focus to managers. To begin, managers need to be aware of external changes which then can affect the whole operation and compete with them by altering their management style and planning according to the current situation. The external changes that we are talking about earlier are the changes that are out of manager control that need to be adapted to stay relevant in global village. For example, changes of law and regulation, natural disaster, and unstable political situation can be a barrier for them to compete globally. Hence, these changes need to be considered by managers when planning for the future strategy and they need to adapt it effectively by suiting all the decisions to align with current situation in order for the company to stay relevant in global village. Next, managers need to learn multiple diverse cultures to manage their cross-cultural workforce efficiently. This can be shown by global operation companies that use managerial and technical employees from around the world, which is called global sourcing. For instance, managing an organization that employs human resources from China, Italy, and Canada. Hence, a specific challenge comes from the need to recognize the differences that might exist and find ways to make interaction effective. By that, managers need to have cross-cultural management ability to handle all the differences and take advantages of each other's strengths in organization equally for smooth running business. Lastly, managers need to have a proper plan to manage the costs and risks incurred on global village organization wisely to maximize the competitive advantage rather than account for losses and risks due to mismanagement when goods and services are marketed worldwide. This has led to the needs of managers to have extra knowledge on the global village to make an informed decision for every choices incurred. For example, managers need to know how to compute and analyze all the possible outcomes when exporting or importing worldwide.
Hi, my name is Nur Hazira binti Nurul Fitri, matrix number 24002894. Me and Aimi will be discussing about how society's expectations are influencing managers and organizations. First, let me start with social responsibility. This is when a company chooses to do more than what the law requires. They are not forced and they are not doing it just for profit, but they are doing it because it is the right thing. Usually, companies that practice CSR consider the impact of their actions on employees, the community, and the environment. For example, Petronas has many CSR programs like scholarships, environmental projects, and community development activities. None of these are required by the law, but they show that the company cares a lot about the society's well-being. Next, we have social obligation, and this one is very different. Here, a company only does the minimum required by the law or economics. They are just following the rules to avoid penalties. That's it. There is no intention to benefit society, and it is mainly about compliance. So a simple example of social obligation is a factory installs air filters only because environmental laws require it. Not because they want to protect the environment, but because they don't want to get fined. And finally, we have social responsiveness. This is when companies actively respond to social needs or changes. They are not doing it because they have to. They are doing it because they see what society needs right now. Managers here are also very proactive. They adjust quickly when society's expectations change. A good example is Grab Malaysia. During COVID-19, Grab started the Grab for Good initiative to support small businesses and drivers. This was not because of legal pressure, but it was purely a response to a real situation where society needed help.
So, let's answer our questions. Today, society plays a big role in shaping how managers and organizations behave. In the past, companies mainly focused on making a profit, while managers believed that their only responsibility was to earn as much as possible for the shareholders. But things have changed. People now expect the companies to do more than just follow the law or make money, because this is where the socio-economic issue come in and suggests that managers should also look after the welfare of society. For example, if a company follows pollution rules, that's just the basic requirement. But when the companies like Petronas, for example, offer scholarships or run a community program that shows real social responsibility, they are doing something good for the community even though no law says they must do it. Because of these growing expectations, managers today are encouraged to make ethical choices, take care of the employees, support sustainability, and think about their impact on the environment. When companies respond to these expectations, they build trust, improve their reputation, and create long-term positive relationship with the public.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Fatin Alin Katika binti Zaidi and my metric number is 24003201. So the next question will be presented by me and my other partner, which is Amira Balkis. So the question asks, should managers be parochialistic? Why or why not? So first and foremost, what does it mean by parochialistic? So parochialistic means a narrow focus in which managers see things only through their own eyes and from their own perspective only. So being a parochialistic means having a very narrow focus. A manager with this attitude sees the world only through their own eyes, or in another words, it's their own way and no other way. So they believe their methods, their culture, and their experiences are the only ones that matter. So the next point is managers fail to recognize that people from other countries have a different ways of doing things or live differently. So this is the main problem where parochial managers fail to recognize the differences. They don't understand that people in other countries have a different cultures, different values, and therefore different ways of working or living. So they judge everyone else based only on the standards of their home country. So let me give you the example. Like for example, a manager might assume that a strict individual bonus system that works in their country will work the same way in a country that values teamwork and community over individual competition. So this type of situation is classified as parochialistic. So the third point is this attitude cannot succeed in a global village. So the attitude simply cannot succeed in our global village. The business world is completely interconnected now. So if you manage a team or sell a product internationally, you must adapt. A narrow self-centered viewpoint will always lead to mistakes, missed opportunities, and conflict with foreign partners or employees. So the last point is managers should not have this kind of attitude called parochialistic. So in conclusion, it is vital that managers should not have this kind of parochialistic attitude. To be successful leader today, we must be open-minded, flexible, and willing to learn from everyone, regardless of where they came from. We need a global perspective and not a narrow one. So I will pass for my next presenter.
Hi everyone, my name is Nur Amira Balkis Binti Azhan and my matrix number is 24002941. Next, I will be presenting on why it is crucial for managers to avoid having a parochial attitude in today's global business environment. First and foremost, a parochial outlook prevents managers from effectively navigating different legal, economic, and political systems. As we all know, all countries have different values, morals, customs, political and economic systems, and laws, all of which can affect how a business is managed. A manager with a parochial mindset will fail to recognize the necessity of being aware of a country's specific laws and current political views on critical issues like immigration, free trade, and nationalism. This awareness is essential for successfully navigating the global environment. Beyond legal systems, a parochial attitude is a significant barrier to understanding a country's social context and culture, which is perhaps the most important and challenging task for global managers. To illustrate this, let's consider the concept of status. The way people view status differs significantly between countries. For example, French society often bases status on factors like seniority and education, whereas American society sees it more as a function of personal accomplishment. A parochial manager, trapped in their own perspective, will fail to understand the subtle yet critical societal issues that might affect business operations in another country. Consequently, they will not recognize that organizational success can come from a variety of managerial practices tailored to these cultural differences. In conclusion, managers should not be parochialistic because global success requires open mindedness, cultural awareness, and adaptability to different environments.
Hi everyone, my name is Nur Fazila Natasha binti Sheikh Muhammad Fazil. My metric number is 240000576. So I'll be presenting the question 3-4. What are the managerial implications of Hofstede's research on cultural environments, the GLOBE study? So, Hofstede's research helps managers understand how cultural values differ among countries and how these differences affect workplace behavior. For example, his 5 cultural dimensions, which are firstly power distance, the degree to which people in a country accept that power in organization is distributed unequally. So the range can be from low to high. And the second is individualism versus collectivism. Individualism is the degree to which people in a country prefer to act as individuals, while collectivism is the opposite, means low individualism. And the third one is achievement versus nurturing. So quantity of life, which is how important values like assertiveness, earning money and possessions and competing are. And quality of life is how much people value relationships and care about others' well-being. And the fourth one is uncertainty avoidance, which is the degree to which people in a country prefer structured over unstructured situations, whether people are willing to take risks. And lastly is long-term versus short-term orientations. Long-term orientations is people look to the future, how much people look to the future and value thrift and persistence. For short-term orientations is how much people values the past and present, respecting traditions and meeting social duties. Now, as for the GLOBE study, it expands Hofstede's work by identifying 9 cultural dimensions, which are power distance, which is how much society expects power to be unequally shared. And secondly, individualism versus collectivism, which is how much individuals are encouraged by societal institutions to be integrated into groups within organizations and society. And the third, also the same as the Hofstede's, uncertainty avoidance, which is the degree which society relies on social norms and procedures to alleviate the unpredictability of future events. And next is in-group collectivism, the degree which society take pride in membership in small groups such as their family and circle of close friends and the organizations in which they are employed. And next is performance orientations, which is how much society encourage and rewards group members for performance improvement and excellence. Next is assertiveness, which is how much society encourages people to be tough, confrontational, assertive, and competitive. Future orientations, which is how much society encourages and rewards future-oriented behaviors such as planning, investing in the future, and delaying gratifications. And the second last is gender differentiations, which is how much society maximizes their gender role differences. And lastly, human orientations, which is how much society encourages and rewards individuals for being fair, altruistic, generous, caring, and kind to others. So the managerial implications, both Hofstede's and GLOBE's findings, helps managers become more culturally aware, enabling them to manage international teams more effectively and avoid parochialism.
Hi, my name is Alisha Iman binti Fazariza and my metric number is 25073398, and I will be discussing about this question. How might the cultural differences in the GLOBE dimensions affect how managers A. Use work groups. Two of the cultural differences dimensions in group finding, which are in-group collectivism and performance orientation, will affect managers to use work groups. Firstly, by using in-group collectivism. People might be wondering what is in-group collectivism. It actually refers to which I stand in society, take pride and feel loyalty towards their friends, family, and organization. In-group collectivism can be split into two, which are high and also low. So, for cultures with high in-group collectivism, the managers will focus on teamwork, loyalty, and also group harmony. For example, countries like Egypt, China, and also Morocco. Meanwhile, cultures with low group in collectivism, like Denmark, New Zealand, and Sweden, will have managers that focus more on independence, performance, and personal rewards. Next, by using performance orientation. So what is performance orientation? It actually refers to the degree to which a society encourages and also rewards group members for performance improvement. Performance orientation can be split into two, which are high and low. So for cultures with high performance orientation, the managers will reward individual accomplishments, such as cultures in the United States and also Taiwan and New Zealand. Meanwhile, cultures with low performance orientation, the managers will place more value on relationships loyalty and also quality of life, rather than measurable results, such as cultures in Russia, Argentina, and also Greece. B. Develop goals and plans. Two of the cultural difference dimensions in group findings, which are future orientations and uncertainty avoidance, will affect managers to develop goals and also plans. Firstly, by using future orientation. Future orientation means to the extent in which society encourages and also rewards future-oriented behaviors such as planning and also investing in the future. Future orientation also can be split into two, which are high and low. So, for culture with high future orientation, will allow managers to set long-term goals and also work consistently to achieve them, such as countries like Denmark, Canada, and also Netherlands. Meanwhile, cultures with low future orientation, like Russia, Argentina, and Poland, will have managers that focus short-term outcomes over long-term benefits. Next cultural difference is by using uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance means how much a culture feels uncomfortable with unpredictability and unclear situations. Uncertainty avoidance can be split into two, which are high and also low. Next, for culture with high uncertainty avoidance, the managers will prefer structured routines and formal rules, such as countries like Austria, Denmark, and also Germany. However, countries like Russia, Hungary, and Bolivia will have more managers that prefer to take risks and also try new approaches.
Hi, my name is Alia Farhana binti Fatsir Azwan. My matrix number is 25005437, and now I will explain how cultural differences in global findings called humane orientation affect how managers reward outstanding employee performance. So humane orientation basically refers to the degree to which a society encourages and rewards individuals for being fair, generous, caring, and kind to others. In simple terms, it tells us whether a culture values compassion and kind behavior. So humane orientation can be split into two, high and low. High cultures with high humane orientation is when managers will emphasize on compassion and caring for others. So countries that practice this kind of culture includes yours truly, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Egypt. Whereas cultures with low humane orientation is when managers will focus less on compassion or concern for others' welfare. So countries that practice this kind of culture includes Germany, Spain, and France. So now we will move on to the cultural differences in global findings called assertiveness and power distance, which affects how managers deal with employee conflict. So assertiveness basically refers to the extent to which a society encourages people to be tough, confrontational, and assertive. Assertiveness can also be split into two, high and low. So cultures with high assertiveness is when managers will be direct, confident, and outspoken. So countries that really follow this kind of culture include Spain, United States, and Greece. Whereas countries with low assertiveness is when managers will be indirect, diplomatic, and polite. So countries with this kind of cultures include New Zealand, Switzerland, and Sweden. So still under the topic of dealing with employee conflict, we are now going to talk about power distance. Power distance refers to the degree to which the members of a society expect power to be equally shared. Power distance can also be split into two, high and low. So cultures with high power distance is when there's a clear hierarchy and authority to be respected. So countries that practice this kind of culture is Russia, Spain, and Thailand. Whereas cultures with low power distance is when hierarchies exist but are flexible and negotiable. So countries that practice this kind of culture include South Africa, Denmark, and the Netherlands.
Now, let's look at the first case application. First of all, charging stations for electric vehicles, or EVs, are now appearing everywhere, and this shows that the global auto industry is going through a major change. Next, experts predict that by the year 2025, electric vehicles will be as cheap as gasoline cars, making them more accessible to people. Furthermore, by 2040, 1/3 of all cars in the world are expected to be electric vehicles. The strongest demand for EVs will come from Europe, the United States, and China, which are the biggest economies in the world. In addition, unlike traditional cars that need oils, EVs depends on lithium-ion batteries, which are now becoming one of the most important products in the world. These lithium-ion batteries need cobalt to be produced, and the Democratic Republic of Congo is the largest producer of cobalt. Next, China is the biggest consumer of Congo's cobalt and now dominates the early stages of the lithium-ion battery production process, producing over 3/4 of all the refined cobalt chemical. Furthermore, a Chinese company called Contemporary Amprex Technology Limited, or we call CATL, has become the leader in EV battery production and plans to expand further. CATL is building a $1.3 billion battery production complex in Ningde, China, which will be the largest EV battery factory in the world once completed. Right now, 99% of CATL's businesses comes from China, but the company is expanding globally, especially to Europe and the US. However, it is still uncertain whether CATL can succeed in the global market without government support.
Let's move on discussion of how does this story illustrate Global Village. This story has illustrated Global Village by first, this organization has used goods as their raw material from another country, which is called global sourcing. Here, CATL is the biggest consumer of cobalt, which is used to produce rechargeable battery from Congo. By this, CALT was able to produce a massive production in order to become the biggest battery producer in the world. Next, the organization has built a partnership with a foreign company. This can be shown when a foreign automaker are required to be partnered with CATL if they want to sell electric vehicle in China. From this situation, a partnership between an organization and a foreign company partner can bring huge advantages to companies in which both are able to share resources and knowledge. Last but not least is the organization has expanded their operation beyond their home country, which is in China. We can see that CATL has already acquired a contract manufacturer in Finland and added more offices in Paris, also facilities in Germany, which indicates that CATL has started begins its move to global stage. To conclude, CATL has illustrated the global village by first, they use goods as their raw material from another country. Next, build a partnership with a foreign company. And lastly, expand their operation beyond their home country. I think that's all for me. I'll pass to the next person. Thank you.
Let's move on to the next discussion question, question 3-12. Using as habit 3-1, what approach is China CATL using to go global? Explain your choices. Based on the case details, it is clear that CATL is not relying on a single method, but is strategically using multiple approaches to global expansion. Firstly, CATL is employing the foreign subsidiary approach, which the textbook defines as a direct investment in a foreign country that involves setting up a separate and independent facility or office. The evidence from the case clearly shows this. CATL acquired a contract manufacturer in Finland and added offices in Paris and facilities in Germany. This specific approach is significant because it gives CATL greater control over its production, quality, and overall operations in these key international markets. Secondly, CATL is also engaging in joint ventures. A joint venture is a specific type of strategic alliance in which the partners agree to form a separate independent organization for some business purpose. The case provides direct evidence for this, stating that some of these have included foreign automakers that have been forced to partner with local battery makers if they want to sell electric vehicles in China. These partnerships likely involve creating separate legal or operational entities to comply with local regulations and manufacture batteries within the joint venture model perfectly. This partnership strategy is highly beneficial for CATL as it allows the company to gain more technological knowledge, secure market access, and increase its global exposure through collaboration. In conclusion, these strategies show that CATL is making significant global investment to expand beyond China and become a dominant global player in EV battery production.
Moving on to the question 3.13. What kind of MNC do you think CATL is? Explain your choice. So before we answer that questions, let's take a look at the three main types of multinational corporations or MNC. First, the multi-domestic corporation. A multi-domestic corporation is an MNC that decentralizes its management and decision-making to each local country. This means the local managers have the freedom to adapt strategies, marketing, and operations to fit local culture, laws, and customer preferences. For example, McDonald's adapts its menu in different countries. In Malaysia, they have nasi lemak McD and ayam goreng McD, while in India, they offer McSpicy Paneer. So each countries have management team that tailors menus, promotions, and also the strategies to suit the local market. Next, the transnational or borderless organization. So this type of MNC spread its management, operations, and workflows globally, making location almost irrelevant. So the goal is to combine the global efficiency with local responsiveness. For example, Unilever operates as a transnational company that has headquarters in both the Netherlands and the UK, with leadership and the production teams distributed worldwide. So it develops global brands like Dove, Sunsilk, and Lipton, but also adapts some products to local markets. And finally, the global corporation. A global corporation centralizes decision-making in its home country. The company views the world as a single market and focuses on efficiency, consistency, and also control. For example, Apple runs its global operations mainly from its US headquarters. Product design, marketing strategy, and quality control are all managed centrally, ensuring that an iPhone or MacBook looks and feels the same anywhere in the world. Now, let's analyze CATL based on the case study. CATL is based in China and 99% of its businesses comes from China. So the company is expanding to Europe and the US, but most decisions and manufacturing are still centralized in China. Its goal is to dominate global battery production, showing a desire for worldwide control and efficiency rather than customizing for the local markets. CATL also received strong government support, indicating that close ties to its home country operations. So in conclusion, CATL can be classified as a global corporation. Management and strategic decisions are primarily centralized in China, while the global market is treated as an integrated whole. Although CATL has begun expanding internationally, most business operations and contracts still originate from China. The company focuses on global efficiency and control, aiming to become the world's largest producer of electric vehicle batteries rather than tailoring strategies to specific countries. This approach reflects the characteristics of a global corporation where the decisions made at a headquarters have worldwide implications. So CATL's global strategy also aligns with its ambition to dominate international battery production while maintaining a unified global brand identity under China's management.
Now I will be presenting the question 314. How will Hostip's dimensions of national culture and globe findings be useful to CATL's management as it moves to Europe and eventually the United States? So, Hostip's research guidance towards CALT's management as it moves to Europe and the US. For instance, in terms of power distance, China is high in degree of power distance culture as the employees expect hierarchy, and while the US have a small or low score in power distance culture, so Hostit's frameworks help CALT in building open communication and trust with the Europe and American employees. And second is individualism versus collectivism. China take pride in membership in small groups, whereas the US is highly individualistic where the employees expect independence. Therefore, Hostit's findings have guided CALT in improving systems that align with the employees' expectations. And lastly, uncertainty avoidance. So China applies the typical practices which is unstructured and are willing to take risks, while the European prefers structured and planned situations without risk. So Hostit's research helped CALT in improving employee satisfaction. That's all from me.
Hello everyone, my name is Aini Patricia Binti Amran and my matrix number is 240000652. And now I will talk about how the group findings can guide CATL when expanding into Western regions like Europe and the US. So first and foremost, under performance orientation, Western countries place high value on results, innovation, efficiency, and also competitiveness. Therefore, CATL needs to focus on high performance, strong technology, R&D, and also deliver clear results. Next is human orientation. Western leadership expects fairness, ethics, transparency, and genuine care for the employees. So this means CATL must show responsibility, support employee well-being, and build trust through transparency. And lastly is assertiveness. In the US, especially, communication is direct and confident, which means leaders are expected to be straightforward and often during discussions and decision making. Hence, CATL managers should communicate clearly and participate actively in the meetings. Overall, these three group dimensions can help CATL understand the leadership expectations in Western markets so that they can adapt more effectively.
We're moving on to question 315, a very interesting question. As much as 14% of the cobalt output in Congo comes from mining done by pursuers or freelancers. US and European companies are leery of doing business with cobalt suppliers who buy from pursuers, partly because some of the miners are children, and these children rarely wear safety masks or other safety equipment and can suffer crippling injuries doing this dangerous job. So now the question is, A. Does this response by these companies fall under the classical view of social responsibility or the socio-economic view of social responsibility? Let's dig in. The response by US and European companies reflect the socio-economic view of social responsibility. Now, what is the differences between these two social responsibilities? The classical view of social responsibility is when a business's main job is to make profit. As long as it follows the law, it is enough. Whereas the socio-economic view of social responsibility is when a business makes profit but it also helps society. The businesses should protect the environment and also improve people's lives. Now, the reasons why this response falls under the socio-economic view is because of three reasons. 1. Social and ethical concerns. Due to child exploitation and unsafe conditions, US and European businesses are wary of cobalt obtained from Congo's pursuers. This decision demonstrates their dedication to worker welfare and ethical sourcing, even if it costs them a loss of profit. Secondly is sustainability and corporate image. These businesses recognize the importance of maintaining positive social reputation and satisfying customer demand for ethical sourcing. They are aligning with society norms on sustainability and human rights by avoiding cobalt associated with child labor. Lastly, we have long-term social impact. The demand for cobalt sourced unethically is lowering due to these businesses avoiding suppliers connected to unethical practices. This strategy prioritizes long-term social advantages over immediate financial gain. Now, I will pass it on to my next groupmate, Alicia. B. Look at the definition of social responsibility and discuss the ethical factors in this scenario. So first, we discuss about what is social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility, CSR, refers to a business firm intention beyond its legal and economic obligations to do the right things and act in ways that are good for society. So, if the company obeys the law, pursue economic interests, and view business as moral action, it is considered as social responsibility. There are three ethical factors. The first one is environmental responsibility. The shift to EVs support sustainability by cutting emissions, but the companies must address the environmental impact of lithium-ion battery mining because it is unhealthy and gives bad impact to the society. The next factor is human rights and labor conditions. Companies must look up to human rights, source cobalt ethically and avoid suppliers that exploit workers or involve child laborers. The third factor is corporate accountability. EV companies have an ethical duty to ensure transparent, responsible supply chains, avoiding unethical suppliers and supporting fair labor and environmental standards.
Alright, now let's dive into our second case study. I have summarized it into 10 main points so it is easier to follow. Number 1. Pests cause a significant loss of global harvest, which is estimated at 175 billion euro annually and posing a threat to global food security and the livelihoods of small farmers. Number 2, the problem is worsening as global trade and reduced biodiversity, spread invasive species, and increase the mobility of pests worldwide. Number 3, pesticides are commonly used to combat these threats, with the German multinational life science company, which is Bayer, being one of the largest global specialists in their production. Number 4, while Bayer claims its insecticides undergo rigorous testing and are safe for both humans and the environment when used as directed, environmentalists heavily criticize the industry's practices. Number 5, environmental groups, including the Pesticide Action Network, argue that these chemicals harm beneficial organisms, pollute water, and damage soil, plants, and other living organisms. Number 6, a major point of contention involves the use of neonicotinoids, a class of insecticides manufactured by Bayer that has been heavily implicated in the mass death of bees in recent years. Since bees are vital pollinators, their declining numbers have shocked the scientific community and prompted regulatory action. Number 8, the European Union, EU, responded to these concerns by voting to ban 3 types of neonicotinoids due to the confirmed dangers they pose to bee populations. Number 9, Bayer challenged the ban, asserting that the chemical is safe when used according to label instructions and arguing that there are no effective alternatives for farmers, which could lead to major agricultural consequences. And lastly, ultimately, while agricultural necessity is often cited, studies have suggested that the restricted use of pesticides as mandated by the EU ban may not actually result in the feared reduction of crop yields.
So now let's discuss the question number 1 for this case study. So the question asks, do you think the European Union's bans of one of Bayer's products in Europe will affect its use and reputation in other territories? Why or why not? So, does the ban affect the buyer's reputation? So, for me, it is affecting the buyer's reputation. And why? So, the first point is the ban creates negative global press, harming the buyer's image as an environmentally responsible company. So, the core issue here is that the conflict between buyer's claim that its insecticides are safe when used responsibly and correctly, and the EU's decision, which was driven by evidence of mass bee deaths. So the ban turns out the abstract threat of environmental harm into a concrete, high-profile failure that the media and environmental groups like the Pesticide Action Network UK can easily criticize. So this case linked with Bayer's claim a tradition of environmental safety, but the EU ruling directly contradicts with this claim, instantly damaging the company's reputation as a trustworthy, science-based entity in the global public eye. So the second point is EU's action may inspire other countries to tighten pesticide regulation. So the EU is known for its strict precautionary principle. It will restrict a product if there is a reasonable scientific doubt about its safety, even if that safety is not completely disproven. So this high standard, backed by the European Food Safety Authority (EFSA) study, makes the ban a strong legal precedent. Other nations often look to the EU for guidance on complex issues like chemicals and food safety. So this case linked because the European Union confirmed the dangers of neonicotinoids to bees. The scientific foundation for the ban is not available to regulators in every other countries, so increasing the likelihood that they will launch their own reviews or follow the EU's examples. So the third point is governments face pressure from citizens and environmental groups to follow the EU's lead. So environmental groups actively use the EU bans as a key tool for lobbying. So they can leverage the decision to say the most powerful regulatory bloc in the world has banned this. Why is our government still allowing it? So this creates public and political pressure that is difficult for local government to ignore. So this case link the text highlight how environmentalist concerns sit comfortably with study suggestion pesticide reduction won't hurt farm output. So this gives activists as a counter-argument to Bayer's claim that the ban will lead to major agricultural consequences for farmers. So the last point is Bayer may invest in safer and eco-friendly alternatives to rebuild the trust. So a market leader that loses a major product and takes a severe reputational hit must adapt. So the ban forces have made the Bayer to shift its considerable research and development focus away from defending the banned chemical and toward developing new demonstrably safer products. So this is the only way to genuinely satisfy concerned consumers and re-establish its image as a science-based leader. So this case link with Bayer still fighting the ban, which is appealing the ruling and arguing the substance is safe. The long-term strategic reality is that the future of pest control must be non-neonicotinoid. Investing in alternatives is a necessary step to repair the company's brand and secure future sales in markets that demand high environmental safety. So I think that's all for me. I will pass the next question for the next presenter. Thank you.
Alright, let's move on to the next question, which is, do you think that the environmentalists have overstated the dangers of various products of bees? No, it doesn't appear like the environmentalists are exaggerating the dangers, because the studies actually show that these pesticides really do harm bees, which are essential for pollination and the food supply. Also, the environmentalists' concerns are backed by scientific research, making it reasonable to worry about the impact of these chemicals on bees and the environment.
Moving on to the next question, asking about, do you believe that Bayer is demonstrating socially responsible actions, and explain. Okay, first, let me talk about the responsibility that Bayer claims to take, especially regarding its insecticides. Bayer often highlights that their products are designed to be safe, not just for people, but also for the environment. They say that every insecticide goes through strict reviews to make sure it meets all environmental regulations. On top of that, Bayer positions itself as an important contributor to global food security. They provide chemicals that help protect crops, which they say benefits both farmers and consumers. Now, Even though Bayer claims to act responsibly, there are also serious concerns about their behavior, especially when it comes to environmental impact. One of the biggest issues is the use of neonicotinoids, which is a type of insecticide that has been heavily criticized worldwide. These chemicals are strongly linked to the decline in bee populations, which is a major environmental threat because bees are essential for pollination and food production. Instead of acknowledging this risk, Bayer has been appealing the EU's ban on several types of neonicotinoids. This shows that the company is prioritizing its financial interest over strong scientific evidence that these products can harm the environment. When we look at their stakeholders, Bayer is clearly doing a good job meeting the expectation of its economic stakeholders like shareholders and farmers. They protect profits and they continue supplying products farmers rely on. But at the same time, they are fail to address the concerns of non-market stakeholders, especially environmentalists and the European Union. So, in conclusion, Bayer's action do not reflect true social responsibility because CSR should balance all stakeholder needs and Bayer's inability to resolve this conflict shows a major weakness in their social responsibility efforts.
So hi, my name is Nit Nurin Umaira binti Nit Yusfarizan Azrin. My matrix number is 240025111 and I'll be answering the question 3.19. Do you agree with Bayer that the European Union's ban on some neonicotinoids is a bad deal for Europe? Discuss. So, to start, I disagree with Bayer's claim. Although Bayer argues that these pesticides are important for protecting crops and also supporting farmers, I believe that the long-term environmental and economic damage caused by bee decline outweigh any short-term farming benefits of using neonicotinoids. So, let's look at this issue from two key perspectives, which are environmental protection and also sustainable farming. So, from environmental protection perspective, environmental protection is one of the main reasons why I support the EU's ban. Neonicotinoids are chemical pesticides that are harmful to bees, and bees play a very vital role in our ecosystem. They are essential pollinators that help crops grow, reproduce, and produce the food that we eat every day. So, when bees are exposed to these neonicotinoids, their ability to navigate, to reproduce are affected. Over time, this leads to a serious decline in bee populations. So if we lose bees, we lose pollination for many fruits, vegetables, and also plants. Protecting bees isn't just about saving one species, it's about maintaining biodiversity and ensuring long-term food security for everyone. Without pollinators, the whole food chain will be disrupted, and that's a much bigger problem than dealing with a few crop pests. So from an environmental standpoint, the EU's decision helps preserve the balance of nature and supports a healthier, more sustainable ecosystem. And the second one is sustainable farming. So many people assume that by reducing pesticide use will automatically reduce the crop yield. But research shows that this is not necessarily true. In fact, studies found that cutting down on pesticide use does not hurt overall farm output. This finding is very important because it proves that we can still maintain good productivity while protecting the environment. The EU's ban encourages farmers to explore safer and more sustainable pest control methods. For example, using biological control, crop rotation, or even natural predators to manage pests instead of relying only on chemicals. So by moving towards this sustainable method, farmers can reduce long-term costs, improve soil health, and protect water and air quality. So in the long run, these shifts support both agriculture and the environment.
Moving on to the next question, which is what lessons have you learned from this case about being socially responsible? To start with, the first lesson that we can learn is social responsibility must come before profit. This is because companies shouldn't make decisions just to earn money, especially if those decisions harm the public or the environment. After all, profits means nothing if it endangers people or damages the planet. Second, complying with the law is not enough. Even though Bayer followed the legal requirement, they ignored important ethical concerns about how their pesticide affected the bees. Therefore, true responsibility means doing the right thing, not only the minimum that the law requires. And the third one is companies must listen to public voices. Instead of focusing only on defending its own products, Bayer should have listened to scientists, farmers, and environmental groups. Being responsible means paying attention to everyone who is affected, not just the company's own interest. Moving on, the first lesson is that sustainability is a crucial part of responsibility. In fact, green businesses help protect ecosystems and ensure resources remain available for future generations. Therefore, this case clearly shows the need to balance making profit with protecting the earth. Finally, the fifth lesson highlights that reputation and trust truly matter. As a consequence, when companies ignore ethical issues, their public image suffers and trust declines. On the other hand, responsible behavior builds long-term credibility and helps maintain loyal customers. To sum it up, these lessons highlight the importance of acting responsibly, listening to others, and also to consider the impact of our actions.
So this is our references that we are using for our video presentation. That's all from us. Thank you.